All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Well, good morning, everybody. You're listening to the Arwen Lewis Show. Today, I have a very special guest, Jacob Cole, from the Central Coast of California. He's a guitarist and singer-songwriter, and he'll be performing this Sunday, July 9th at the Hitching Post 2 in Dublin, California, from 2 to 4 p.m. I've been able to book the Hitching Post 2 concert series this season, and Jacob is our finale act for the series, so we're really happy to have him play. And Jacob, how are you? Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it.
So let's just dive right into this little conversation.
Sure.
And by the way, Jacob and I just met right now, so this is going to be fun. You're gonna get to know each other.
That's right.
So where are you from?
I'm from Connecticut originally, but I moved out to the Central Coast of Lompoc specifically when I was a kid. So I would say I'm a Central Coast boy, more or less.
All right.
Yeah.
And have you played music from a young age, or when did you start to play?
Yeah, I grew up in a pretty musical family. We grew up in a really sort of unorthodox way, but a way that I've learned to really appreciate, where arts and imagination and creative learning were all really encouraged. And my father and my uncles, they all play music, so we always had music around the house. I'd fall asleep listening to my uncles and father jamming in the living room. Me and my brother and my sister, we all play and have since we were pretty young. But I didn't want to do music for like a career until I was a little bit older.
Okay. Is that when you started writing songs too?
Honestly, I've been writing songs or trying to write songs since I was probably like 10 or younger. The idea of telling a story was always really, really appealing to me, but I wanted to be a graphic design artist or like an illustrator. I was obsessed with comic books as a kid, and sci-fi, and anything that are just like colorful.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like I had much of a voice, both in terms of how to formulate a story or a narrative, but also I didn't really particularly care for the way I sounded when I was singing. So I gravitated toward the guitar eventually, and found that creating themes and melody was a lot easier for me than writing things out. And eventually, though, that the writing came, but it took some time, I think, for it to feel more natural.
I think that just comes with time. The more you play, other people's songs too. I feel like that kind of engraves a foundation for a style of songwriting. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, learning as much as you can from whether it's people you're around, jamming, or yes, artists that you look up to and you grow up playing, Bob Dylan songs or Johnny Cash songs or Loretta Lynn songs.
Yeah,
all of that stuff. It all mixes together to create like your sound, I think, whether you're thinking about it or consciously or not.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like as far as your training, did you learn theory, or did you just kind of learn chords, and how did you become or develop into a lead guitar player too?
Right. So I'm self-taught, but it's an interesting question because of how to answer it for me. It sounds more romantic saying, "Oh, I'm self-taught. I just learned by ear." It's a wonderful thing. I just was gifted this thing, but that's not really true. Like we're all affected by the people we're around all the time. And again, my family being very musical, my father's a good guitar player and a musician. He also taught for some time, and he definitely showed me kind of like the ropes, like a 12-bar blues, my first few chords, and then he gave me some lessons on like how to listen for like melody and training your ear and that sort of thing. And I found from a young age I definitely don't have perfect pitch. That actually sounds kind of like a curse, to be honest, but I do have good relative hearing. And so learning how to take what you're hearing and bring it out of the instrument, whether it's a piano or guitar. But yeah, no formal lessons or anything. And it was like theory, because I teach music too. Theory is one of those things where it makes sense now, but it did not make sense originally. And back to like the romance of playing music, I think when you're younger, you read a lot of interviews by like your favorite artists. Like I would read, I don't know, some guitar player, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I just picked it up, and I don't know, I just worked hard at it, and eventually I was able to make sounds, and
Yeah.
and that is there is something really, I think, wild west about that approach, but I don't think that's completely honest either. I mean, everybody's different, and I am absolutely generalizing here, but I found through time, like you learn to hear like the difference between a major third or a minor third pretty quick, even if you don't know what it's called. And these things we know, we just don't know how to put a name to them.
Totally.
So a lot of the theory stuff came later when I realized, oh, I kind of already know what this is. I had to sort of take it apart and put it back together again in my own way. So a long answer, but that's more or less how I think about theory, I suppose.
I mean, you're speaking my language because that's basically how I was taught too.
Right.
Like my dad's a musician as well. And I started learning from him just by him writing chord charts out for songs.
Yeah.
And then I would learn songs on my own. But I think it's nice when you learn theory later because you develop your own sound and your own style kind of first. And it's not so like cookie cutter,
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like, like I don't know. I just think you're able to develop like a unique sound if you kind of learn like just the basics first and then bring your theory in, and then you have more freedom later to create.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, do you have any like amazing influences that really inspire you, or do you have a wide variety of people you like to listen
A wide
to?
variety. I'd say it's like every 5 years those influences change.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, it was certainly the blues and jazz, and like my parents had a really massive record collection, which unfortunately was lost in a fire a long time ago. But I grew up listening to a lot of like classic rock. I love the Beatles. I was obsessed with the Beatles when I was a kid, to the point where I would go to thrift stores and find whatever tapes I could, and I had this one tape that was like the Looney Tunes doing Beatles songs, which was rocked my world.
Yeah.
And then Prince was a big influence too. Actually, my mom is huge into The Cure and Prince, and a lot of like the 80s stuff. That influence and that style of songwriting, like new wave and then post rock and post punk, that stuff came more from my mom. And then my father's definitely more like the what you think of. I hate saying this word, but people, I feel like in the millennial generation, mean it more affectionately than it's become, which is like boomer rock.
Yeah.
Which I love, or dad rock. Like I proudly say I play dad rock. I love jamming and getting down on the guitar. But it took me a long time to feel comfortable with that, because a lot of my peers, for a long time, guitar was uncool, and guitar has had a massive resurgence again, to where arguably, while the guitar hero has changed, I think the popularity of the instrument is a lot more prominent than it's ever been. And I see that anytime I travel or tour, and we're playing to like I would say high school through college age, they go nuts over guitar stuff, like stuff that I took for granted, like tricks I would do, like ridiculous showboating stuff you learn from like your favorite blues artists, like T-Bone Walker, playing behind your back or with your teeth, or the Hendrix routine. It was just fun when you're a kid, and you do that because you can get a rise out of people. But then you stop doing it because you're like, you're just kind of, again, you're showboating. It's I don't know, which is fun from if you're into the drama of it. But what I realized is kids had never really seen that. So you start doing some of that stuff, and it really gets quite a reaction out of people. But in a way,
imagine so, yeah.
But in a way that I didn't get from like my peers. So like you go a couple generations, ahead, and now it's like all of a sudden they're just enough removed from that era to where it feels new and fresh to them again. Like that band, I can't remember the name, but they sound like Led Zeppelin. Anyhow, I can't think of their name, so I guess I shouldn't dwell on it. But they've had this massive ascent in popularity because kids did not grow up listening to Led Zeppelin like me and my brother did, or we all did. So.
I think that whole like the sound from the 60s and 70s and 80s too, like it's totally coming back, like like the retro thing, whether or not people know it's like a resurgence of it or if it's a new sound, it's generally amazing anyways. And I feel like if music is good, I feel like it's timeless and it's always going to be good, and people are always going to like it, if it makes you feel a certain way.
Yes.
So I'll try to brainstorm and figure out who that band is too.
Yeah.
But another thing I want to talk about too is you're going to play an acoustic song for us today, but you do a lot of looping as well, right? I've seen some videos of you. Okay. Yes. How'd you get into that?
Kind of by accident. I'm really into Bill Frisell, and I was going into I had seen him play a couple of times, and noticed this green DL4 pedal. I didn't know what it was at the time, and I wasn't like anti pedals, but I definitely was from the minimalist, just find something that works and make it work with whatever you got. And
Yeah.
but it was Bill Frisell's fault in a lot of ways. I started getting more into like gear and that sort of thing and what that opens up sonically.
Yeah.
So I got one because of Bill. That's basically it. And
Nice.
then it was kind of like a, it's been a rabbit hole ever since, really. But looping was a great practice tool. And then I realized the live application. I miss playing with bands as often as I used to do, like in my 20s. And you get to your 30s, and if you're still doing music and lucky enough to still be doing it in some way, you have to figure out, I think, a lot more options in terms of how you present your sound. And looping is one of those things that just felt, I don't know, like a practical thing. And then I taught my feet how to sort of tap dance and do like a kick snare thing.
Nice.
So I try to do that too. And it's just to fill the sound. It's just basically because I want to hear more when I'm playing live.
So you have a kick and a snare, like on like an actual kick and snare on stage.
It's
not like a pedal.
Yeah,
effect?
it's a Roland sample pad, and then you can upload different kick sounds to it, and it's triggered by your foot. So in real time, you are triggering it like a kick drum, but it's a lot easier to bring that. So I'll be bringing that to the Hitching Post this weekend.
Awesome.
That, and then I just put like whatever like bells and tambourine stuff I have on my foot,
Okay.
just to get something to accent that kick sound. But
And I think it's just a different, like, you're painting a different picture, like you have different sound waves and you're gonna, I don't know, I like to say I see colors when I watch, or when I watch music, when I hear music.
yeah, a little synesthesia.
But it's different than like the acoustic thing is like a warmer, more kind of like rootsy sound, I feel like. And then like when you have the looping, with the pedals and everything, you just kind of go into another realm. So I feel like that gives you more creativity as far as being an artist goes, right?
Yes, totally. I have to stretch though a little more than I used to, because it does it does physically run its toll if you're doing like 3-hour gigs like 4 days a week, and then you're not like taking care. I had to learn that the hard way the beginning of this year, like after touring a lot the past year and a half, and then like doing a lot of those kinds of gigs too. And I was still gigging like I was when I was 25, and I'm 35, so it's like just keeping that in mind now and making sure I'm a little limber.
Well, drink your water.
Yeah, hydrate.
Take your vitamins.
Yeah, exactly.
Do yoga.
Yeah. And diet's a big thing too. Like
Totally.
I'm not like actually sensitive to gluten, but it's a very inflammatory thing, so I stay away from it. I've noticed that's made a big difference for me too. Maybe it's placebo, I don't know, but it's helped, at least in my head.
No, I'm right there with you. And I mean, when you're on tour, that's an athletic thing that you're going through for sure. You're an athlete, even if, you're using your mind and your creativity, which you have to do too, which we can get into.
I feel like that's a whole market that hasn't been tapped into yet, which is talking about health and musicians, basically performing artists in that kind of a way. I don't know. I need to think about that more, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure Lady Gaga has her own nutritionist
Yes.
and physical
I'm
therapist
sure.
on the road with her.
Yes.
And you will too one day, right?
Maybe, sure, if I'm lucky.
Well, I believe so. And if people want to, before we have you play a song here, I'm just going to let everybody know that Jacob will be performing live at the Hitching Post 2 concert series if you're just tuning in. And that's this Sunday, July 9th from 2 to 4 p.m. over at the Hitching Post Tasting Room in Dualton. I'm Arwen Lewis, and we've got Jacob Cole here, who's going to play a live acoustic song for you on his little interview show today. So please enjoy.